Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Empyrion Galactic Survival episode 39. I'm Igneous and today we're back. It's been almost a week since we posted a video for this series because we're building a new computer, and now that it's built and set up and up and running, we can continue this series. Now, just a bit of a fair warning, there's a lot of stuff in the behind the scenes that had to take place before we could make this episode, which is why the episode is so short. It's one of those kinds of things where it took a long time, but it doesn't take a long time to describe or show off, sort of thing. The next episode, based on what we've done in this episode, the next episode will be a little bit longer, a little bit more robust. So if you're a little bit disappointed by how short this one is, don't feel bad. We're aware of it, we're working on it, it won't be a problem in the long term. The first thing that I wanted to do was start gathering resources. If we're going to get off planet again, we could go now, we could leave the planet, no problem, but I'm not comfortable that our capital vessel has enough fuel to actually go anywhere and do anything interesting. So that was one of the things that I wanted to do. Also, I've got all of these ammo boxes that aren't anywhere near full, just for peace of mind. Load them all up, something that I want to do. So we need to gather some materials, and this, you see, is one of the promethium deposits that I depleted, and I just kind of wanted to show you because this is just some weird habit that I've gotten into. It's not because I consciously decided it's the best way to do things, it's probably not, but because it happened, and it's happened more than once since this one, which is basically excavating around the perimeter of the deposit. Now, when I'm doing that, I'm not going after the stone around it, I'm actually grabbing the minerals and stuff from the deposit, but specifically going around that perimeter where those minerals meet the stone until you get left with this giant blob in the middle of whatever deposit we happen to be working on, in this case promethium, and it's just a pure blob. Just start mining away at it wherever you want. But see, the reason why it's maybe not such a great idea is because you get to the bottom of this thing and you've got this giant pure blob that you can start gathering from. The temptation is to start gathering from it. If you don't start at the top of the blob and work your way down just like a person would if they were trying to do their normal mining in an orderly fashion, likely to end up in a situation where you have this giant floating cluster of material at the top of your deposit. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get to, as was the case here. That's what ended up happening to me, and in the process of getting on top of that blob and starting to excavate it, you do just a little bit down too far, and the next thing you know, you've made a slope on the blob and you're sliding off of it, and then you have to go back out and then down and onto it. It's just a pain. If you have the presence of mind to make sure that you don't start excavating it from the bottom up, it's all right. It's nothing great, but it's not that bad either. But what it did do after 2 promethium deposits, an iron deposit, and 2 magnesium deposits is it left me in a spot where I had a lot of material to process, and I didn't really want to wait the rest of my life for it to happen. And this is what we ended up with in our base on Omicron to account for all those extra materials. Is we almost tripled the total number of advanced constructors in our base. We went from 5 to 16. And it just means that we can divide up the resources into the various different machines, and they'll be done sooner. That's kind of the whole thing, is to get things done sooner. Otherwise, you can end up waiting a very, very long time, especially for promethium. It processes very, very slowly. If you had to put it all in one machine and wait, it would take a very, very long time. So I've learned this from experience. The more machines we have, the more we can divide up the workload, the faster it gets done, everybody's happier. And then when it comes to time to build other things like processing for the parts to make ammunition, most ammunition requires metal pieces and magnesium. You'll have probably already processed the magnesium, but then you take the iron and you put it in one machine to make metal pieces, and you take those pieces and you put it in another machine to make ammunition. It works a little bit quicker than if you just try and build the ammunition in one machine. A little bit quicker, not a lot. Whatever we can do to help. At this point, it will work out much, much quicker because we were processing the iron into metal pieces as soon as we could, and now we've got the magnesium, we can combine it. We don't have to worry about it to make all the little sub pieces. That's kind of the thing. So we've got this is expanding, we've got lots of extra room. There was a roadmap the developers released in the last couple of days. One of the things on that roadmap was automation for machines, conveyors, tubes, whatever you want to call them, connecting machines so that you can take advantage of that, which will probably make things faster and easier to manage than what we've currently got. So I've got plenty of space to expand that sort of thing if that's what we end up needing. Otherwise, we can just expand more machines. But it does kind of illustrate the benefit of building larger than a person might think they would use when they're just kind of getting started, because things expand and they take a lot of space. When they do, you'd rather have empty floor space than having to punch holes in walls to get things done. Speaking of which, another thing I wanted to show you guys, I'm going to fly up here. Fortunately, the sun has just come up, which would be very handy. We can turn this guy off, or can we? Maybe we'll keep it on for now. The sun is up, but it's not very bright. When we first designed our capital vessel, the whole hover vessel thing wasn't working too well for us. We've mentioned it so many times, all the problems that we were having getting flung up in the air and getting stuck on the terrain over tiny little things like rocks and little brushes and stuff like that. So I didn't worry about making a hangar for a hover vessel because I didn't think we were going to need one. And obviously our adder has changed our mind on that. It's still hanging out down there. Definitely is on the list of things that I want to take to the next planet that we spend any real amount of time on, because it's so versatile. I mean, for scouting and looking around to seeing what's on that planet, we have our small vessel, the Dragon, which is just down there. And then for actually getting down to the business of going and, clearing enemy structures and mining and doing all those things, we've got the hover vessel that's got its own point defense turrets and all these other things. So it's very, very useful, I think, to have on this planet. It will only be as useful, if not more useful, in other planets. So that's what we're doing. We've set up this sort of thing here. We've retrofit the back end of our capital vessel. So we've got a ramp that we can bring back up. It doesn't hang out there all the time. And then we've got hangar doors, of course, that we can close into this area that will be, I think, just large enough for the hover vessel. This is what we use to get into and out of the capital vessel when we're not trying to get a ship in and out. We may have to move it forward a little bit in order to accommodate the hover vessel. Otherwise, when the hover vessel is parked in here, it might just block off this opening, which wouldn't be ideal. But we'll see how it goes. I kind of have to wait till this whole thing is done, and then I can move the capital vessel down there and try and get the hover vessel onto it. We can't get the hover vessel up here. There's just no way. The other thing that we needed to do, obviously, if we're going to bring a small vessel, and having used so much of the small vessel hangar's capacity for the hover vessel, is we had to build a small vessel hangar as well. So obviously the small vessel can fly up into this hangar. We can build it elevated on the capital vessel without too much difficulty. And it's just a matter now of, we've got it roughly in the right spot. The floor is roughly large enough. We might make it a little bit larger, extending out a little bit, and then we have to obviously have room for the hangar doors and a lip around the hangar doors to protect them. Then we can get the small vessel in here, and then this guy will be ready to take on our next excursion. I've got 6 minigun turrets ready to put back on the back end. We took 4 off when we started doing the retrofit, and I'm going to try and get 6 on in place of them. So that would be a little bit of extra firepower, a little bit of extra protection on the back end, and a little bit of extra insurance if turrets are getting destroyed for whatever reason, that we'll still have that defense on the back end that we're looking for. So that's about as far as I got. I actually had to stop and make some hardened steel blocks, and then once I get them in place, I will convert them to combat steel. I wanted to say construction steel for a second there, but it's combat steel, just for the added protection. I find that works better because the hardened steel blocks are easier to break if you misplace one than the combat steel. So you place them as hardened steel and then upgrade them on the spot when you're convinced that they're where you want them to be. And the whole process just goes a little bit quicker because I place blocks and I remove them and I place them and I move them and I do all these crazy things just trying to get the layout that I want. Saving a little bit of time breaking them down when I have to move them is definitely something that I'm happy to do. So that's what I've been working on. It's taken a while. It's definitely taken a while. Like I say, once we get this completely closed in, we'll get some large fuel packets made so that we can fill up this guy's fuel tanks and have some in reserve. And then the last thing that we'll be looking at is making sure that we have enough ammunition for all of our weapons on this guy, plus our small vessel and our hover vessel and then we'll be off. We'll be off to the next planet. So the next episode, like I say, it'll be a little bit longer. There'll be a little bit more to it, a little bit more to show off, and we'll go from there. We'll see what happens. We might be ready by the next episode to head off to the new planet. I think that would be kind of a nice thing to be able to do, but also not the kind of thing that I can promise just because of the way these things work out. So if you want to be notified when we add the next episode, you can always subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media always in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.